Hello and thank you for tuning in to Millennium Movies. We're going to be diving deep into each individual segment from VHS 99 and ranking them from our least favorite to our most favorite in this spoiler-filled video. So let's just get right into it, no wasting time. Coming in last place, we have Shredding, directed by Maggie Levin. Now, the concept for this story is basically we have a bunch of rock band amateur teenagers who go to a location where a fire burned and killed some of the rock band members of old, and their souls still inhabit the place and haunt the grounds for anyone who dares to step foot in them. And basically, I'd say that this is a fine segment. It's not a bad segment by any means. It just feels like the basic version of what VHS is, right? Like, it feels like what someone on the outside looking in would think of VHS, where all they would see in this is this wonky found footage spliced together narrative, creating this sort of jarring feel to the story. And you've got some unlikable characters here. They're not fun to root for or even against. They're just not very captivating characters. They're really annoying. And the idea of this rock band haunting the grounds of their perishing place, still in this middle space between, undead and ghost-like, and then having them play a song on stage, still in that form at the end of the segment, it felt kind of cheesy and kind of came off as campy, but in a bad way. And if you don't buy into that, then I don't see how this segment can really work for you, and it just felt too basic for me. It doesn't bring that special sauce that makes a segment memorable, like the Succubus from VHS 1 or even Ratma from VHS 94. So for those reasons, it comes in last place. In fourth place, we have To Hell and Back, directed by Joseph and Vanessa Winters. Now, with this one, we have a group of documentary filmmakers who are looking to capture a ritualistic, performance, basically on screen, on camera, and they do capture it, and it actually ends up sending them into the underworld. And I really like that concept. Man, the creature design and the monsters and the makeup and effects at work for this segment was off the charts. Everything looked gnarly, everything looked grotesque. It was, in that regards, it's perfect. And the set location with the everlasting red clouds and the storm raging in the background and the demonic voice echoing throughout the underworld, everything in that department I loved. But where it just didn't mesh well with me and my personal taste is just the tone. We have the main characters in this segment, kind of having this back and forth, sort of witty dialogue where they're both cracking jokes at each other's expense or making, funny offhand remarks, and it just feels like, that tone mixed in with, what it's going up against, juxtaposed that with all the scary stuff that they're seeing and going up against, it just creates this feeling of almost like lightheartedness, like they're not taking the very terrifying situation that they're in seriously enough for me, and it just sort of takes me out of that setting and out of that emotion, out of the emotional roller coaster that they should be on. For me, it just sort of takes me out of the experience, and it makes me feel like I'm just watching. It makes me feel like I'm watching a segment, unlike the next couple of segments that we're going to talk about, which are my real favorites. So coming in at number 3, we have Suicide Bid, which is directed by Johannes Roberts, the director of Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City. And with this segment, it has that true urban legends type of feel to it, right? We have a group of sorority girls trying to get an initiation going with a new member who is really looking up to them, and she has to deal with, getting put into a casket overnight where, supposedly this spirit of this very evil woman, is haunting the cemetery, right? Well, we do get to see that play out, and you get to see the sorority girls get their comeuppance by the end. You get a pretty intense and scary reveal of the monster / ghost, and when it crashes through the casket and with the water rising, it creates this level of intensity and suspense that just has you on the edge of your seat when you're watching. And again, the creature design and the makeup effects for all these segments, especially in Suicide Bid, it looks really gross, and it looks hauntingly beautiful, right? That's the way I would describe it. It's so ugly you just can't take your eyes off of it, and that's what I want from my VHS segments. And it's got an evil but satisfying twist ending to it as well, with the main character, our protagonist, deciding to make a deal with the monster and saying, hey, I'll give you all these sorority girls who put me here and put me here in the first place, and you can take all of them and you can have all these other sisters you want, just let me go. And she does get away, I think, at the end, and just a all-around fun segment is Suicide Bid. So Johannes Roberts, did a really standout job with his direction and his execution of this, pretty simple but very fun story. Next up, we have The Gawkers, which was directed by Chris Lee Hill and Tyler McIntyre. So, this one had a very simplistic premise, right? We have a group of teenage troublemaker boys in the 90s who are, spying on their neighbor who's holding a very dark secret. And that dark secret turns out to be that she's this Medusa type of creature, right? Man, it looked scary. I love the way that I loved how sudden it felt when, there was really no wasting time with this segment, right? We got the boys, spying on their neighbor who they think is really attractive, and they're being creeps and they're being weirdos. And then, the reveal comes in pretty quickly that she is not, she's not human. She's otherworldly. She's something, very, very ancient and very dark and disturbing. And I love that, when she finally just, enters into the boys' house and just starts wreaking havoc on them and just taking them apart limb by limb and one by one. I love the execution of it. It feels sort of believable in a way, right? Where it feels like where the best VHS segments come from is when it feels like they can pull you into the world that you're watching and make you feel like you're just an observer who just happens to be in the area along with the characters, right? And that's what you want. You want to feel like you're a part of the story. You're kind of almost witnessing it firsthand, and they really captured that true feeling of that in this segment. So hats off to Chris Lee Hill and Tyler McIntyre, the directors. And, The Gawkers really has the most believability too, especially with the characters. It really feels like you're just being, it really feels like these actors were just plugged out of the 90s and thrown right into this segment because, man, everything from the dialogue to their cadence of their voices, the way they talk, the way they say things, they feel like they are in the 90s. So, hats off to this segment for pulling that off, where VHS 94, kind of just has a loose tie to the 90s. The Gawkers really does feel like it puts you smack middle of the 90s. So I loved it for that. And it really is, it's a cautionary tale of what happens when you misbehave and you just don't mind your freaking business. You might find out that your neighbor is a Medusa-like creature who's going to kill you and all your buddies. And finally, my favorite segment, Ozzy's Dungeon, directed by Flying Lotus and Zoe Cooper. Man, this was an absurd story. This is a roller coaster ride of a horror story, man. It's got a premise where basically we have a children's game show where a contestant suffers a very tragic accident on set, and the show gets shut down. And years later, or sometime later, the family of that victim comes after the children's show host, who's played by Stephen Ogg, my man Trevor from GTA, who's entertaining as always. Basically, they come for revenge, and they find out from him that, no, wait, I can take you to Ozzy's dungeon, because the whole premise of the children's game show is that anybody who completes the whole setup that they have gets to meet Ozzy and gets a wish granted. But he says that no one's ever actually met Ozzy and had a wish granted. It's never been done before. But he's like, but I can make the daughter who suffered a tragic incident at the beginning of the segment. He's like, I can take you to Ozzy, and I can get you your wish granted, whatever you want, kid. And basically, we find out what's going on in Ozzy's dungeon. He's got a massive woman who's laying in this bed with people worshiping her at her feet around her. And we find out when the kid makes her wish that this almost like slimy worm-looking demon creature pops out of the woman's stomach and just completely melts everybody's face off in the room. And of course, the girl who got injured on the show in the beginning of the segment, she leaves us off with a smile on her face, and she's like, oh my goodness, okay, this girl went full on just let the world burn, and seeing the effects work on everyone's faces, just melting off of them, it was pretty gnarly. It was pretty fun. It was pretty great to see. And this is the standout segment from VHS 99, hands down. And I hope that we get more like this in VHS 85, which is coming to us sometime next year. And it leaves you with a lot of excitement going forward for the VHS franchise. And I gotta say, overall, VHS 99 was a pretty fun time, all things considered. So yeah, this has been my spoiler review for VHS 99 and all my segments ranked from least favorite to most favorite, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts and your personal rankings of the segments from VHS 99. Let me know in the comment section down below, and we'll go ahead and have a conversation down in the comment section. But until next time, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest in the world of film and TV news, well, you're already in the right place, and consider subscribing to the channel because I would love to have you along for the ride. But until next time, this has been Millennium Movies, and I will see you all very soon.